The clinking of crystal glasses echoed through the dining hall, soft and delicate, almost mocking. The chandelier above showered golden light across the long mahogany table, casting perfect reflections on polished silverware. The air was thick with expensive perfume and hushed conversations, until she spoke. "Vivian, my mother-in-law." The woman who'd spent the past 7 years of my marriage silently judging everything from my wardrobe to my career choices, finally decided tonight was the perfect moment to strike. She raised her champagne flute, her diamond bracelet catching the light like a blade. Her lips curved into a smile, but her eyes stayed cold, sharp, merciless. "To Adrian," she began, glancing at my husband, her golden boy, the perfect son she'd molded since birth. To his hard work, his success, his impeccable taste. Her gaze slid across the table and landed squarely on me. I knew what was coming before she said it. I could feel the room shift, as if everyone else did too. "Because heaven knows," she said, her voice smooth as silk but laced with venom, "you were never good enough for him." The laughter stopped. Forks froze mid-air. The string quartet missed a note. My breath caught, but my body refused to move. I stared at Vivian, searching her face for some hint, some tiny crack that would tell me she'd made a bad joke, that maybe I'd misheard her. But no. Her smile stayed intact, her gaze unwavering. What stunned me most wasn't her words. It was Adrian's silence. He didn't defend me. He didn't even flinch. He just lowered his eyes to his plate and sliced into his filet mignon, as if nothing had been said. I swallowed hard, forcing my lips into a tight, polite smile I didn't feel. I could almost hear my heartbeat over the soft hum of the dining room. The pitying glances came fast, cousins shifting uncomfortably, aunts whispering into wine glasses, strangers pretending not to stare. I told myself to breathe, to stay calm, to not give Vivian the reaction she wanted, but my hands trembled anyway beneath the linen napkin on my lap. After the toast, she leaned close to Adrian's sister, Lena, whispering something that made Lena smirk behind her glass. The humiliation burned hotter. I felt like I was shrinking, as if the high-backed velvet chair might swallow me whole if I let it. Was this how it started? The slow, methodical unraveling of my place in this family? Was this the moment I became an outsider at my own husband's table? I excused myself quietly, heading to the balcony for air. The night breeze was sharp, cutting through the tightness in my chest. From inside, I could still hear the muffled laughter, the soft piano, the clinking glasses. Adrian didn't follow me. I stared at the city lights below and promised myself one thing. I wouldn't cry. Not here, not tonight. But what I didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning. Vivian's words weren't just an insult. They were a declaration of war. And war requires strategy. By the next morning, everyone knew. Not just the people at the anniversary dinner, but everyone. My phone buzzed with messages before I even opened my eyes. Some were from relatives I barely spoke to, others from acquaintances I'd met once at a barbecue 3 summers ago. "Are you okay?" I heard what Vivian said. "Don't take it personally." That's just how she is. But the worst ones were the ones that didn't say anything at all. Just the 3 dots, blinking, disappearing, judging in silence. Somewhere between coffee and cold toast, I realized what had happened. Someone at that dinner, maybe several someones, had recorded the toast. A shaky, dimly lit, 30-second clip of Vivian's words was now making its way through the family chat threads, framed as just a joke. A joke. I watched the clip on repeat, over and over, seeing myself in the background. My stiff smile, my frozen hands. The exact second when humiliation turned my skin cold. By noon, I got a text from Lena, Adrian's sister. "Ignore Mom. You know how she gets no apology, no defense, just a subtle reminder. This wasn't their problem, it was mine." And Adrian? Still silent. When he finally came home that evening, he set his briefcase down like nothing had happened. I wanted to ask him why he hadn't said anything, why he'd let his mother's words hang in the air like smoke. But when I opened my mouth, he beat me to it. "Don't make this bigger than it is," he said, loosening his tie. "She didn't mean it like that." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't a funny laugh. It was the sharp, bitter kind that cracks inside your throat. She told a room full of people I'm not good enough for you, Adrian. How else was I supposed to take it? He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my gaze. Look, she can be harsh sometimes, but she loves you. Loves me. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "Then why does it feel like she's trying to erase me?" That was the first time he didn't answer me. By the weekend, things had escalated. At a cousin's engagement party, I overheard whispers behind me. "She tried too hard." "No wonder Vivian doesn't like her. Honestly, Adrian deserves better." The words stuck like wet paint, staining everything they touched. I didn't belong here, not at the table, not in this family, maybe not even in Adrian's life. Then, just as I thought the humiliation couldn't cut deeper, Vivian sent me a message. "Darling, don't overthink. I was kidding. We all know Adrian's out of your league anyway. A joke." Again. But this wasn't just about words anymore. I started noticing little changes. Invitations to family lunches where my name was left off. Updates about business ventures. Adrian's family was involved in. Conveniently, forgotten. Decisions made about our shared finances without consulting me first. And the strangest thing of all? That weekend, Adrian got a call from one of his mother's lawyer friends asking to schedule a casual review of our prenup. Adrian brushed it off as routine, but my stomach twisted with unease. Was this just humiliation, or was something bigger at play? I didn't know it then, but Vivian wasn't just trying to shame me. She was laying the foundation for something much, much worse. The stain wasn't fading, it was spreading, and soon I'd find out just how far. 2 weeks after the anniversary dinner, I got the call. A polite voice from a private number introduced himself as Mr. Sullivan, a close family advisor. He spoke warmly, too warmly, in the kind of tone you'd use to coax a nervous child into a dentist's chair. "Vivian thought it might be a good idea," he said, "to schedule a quick review of some documents tied to the family business. Nothing serious, of course, just housekeeping, housekeeping." That word lodged in my chest like a splinter. When I told Adrian, he barely looked up from his laptop. "It's fine," he said. "Mom does this every few years. It's just to keep things organized." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that Vivian's humiliation at the anniversary dinner was an isolated wound, not the start of something larger, sharper, systemic. So, I agreed. The meeting took place in Sullivan's downtown office, a glass fortress 30 floors above the street. The walls were lined with abstract art, deliberately soulless, and the air smelled faintly of leather and polished stone. Vivian was already there when I arrived. Of course she was. She sat at the head of the long walnut table, her posture straight, her pearl earrings catching the light, a picture of effortless power. Across from her, Lena scrolled through her phone, occasionally hiding a smirk. "Darling," Vivian purred, gesturing to the chair opposite her. "Thank you for coming." "This shouldn't take long." Sullivan slid a folder toward me. Inside were neatly clipped pages filled with legal language that made my stomach churn. "These," he said smoothly, "are just updates to ensure everyone's protected should unexpected circumstances arise." Unexpected circumstances. I scanned the first page and froze. It wasn't just housekeeping. It was a prenup addendum. Clauses I'd never seen before, clauses I hadn't signed, hadn't agreed to, hadn't even known existed. Provisions about inheritance rights, asset restrictions, even penalties if I ever acted in ways that could harm the family's public reputation. "What is this?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Vivian didn't blink. "Oh, just simple protections, dear." "It's standard in families like ours." "Standard?" I flipped to the second page. "Why does this give you the right to approve any financial decisions Adrian and I make together over a certain threshold?" Lena laughed softly without looking up. "Because, sweetie, when you marry into legacy, you marry into responsibility." I turned to Adrian. He looked uneasy, not surprised. Uneasy. That was worse. You knew about this? He sighed, rubbing his temple. I thought we'd just sign it and move on. It's nothing, really. Just legal noise. Legal noise? My voice cracked on the words. Adrian, this gives your mother control over everything we build. Over me, Vivian leaned back, her expression serene, almost amused. Darling, she said softly, if you plan to build something, shouldn't we ensure it stands on a solid foundation? I stared at her, trying to decipher whether she believed her own performance, or if she knew exactly how manipulative it was. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed in the living room, the unsigned documents spread out across the coffee table like broken glass. Every line was another cut, every clause, another reminder. I wasn't a partner in this marriage. I was a liability to manage. I should have shredded the papers. I should have called a lawyer. But instead, I sat there until sunrise, watching the city wake up through our windows, feeling the slow, heavy weight of something shifting beneath my feet. Vivian's toast wasn't just an insult anymore. It was a warning, and I had just stepped into her game without realizing it. The next morning, something else happened. When I reached for my jewelry box to grab my wedding ring, I noticed the smaller velvet box inside, the one holding Vivian's heirloom sapphire ring, the one she'd loaned me for the anniversary dinner. It was gone. The velvet box was empty. For a moment, I thought I was seeing things. I blinked, opened every drawer, checked the floor, even searched the laundry basket as if the ring had magically rolled inside. But it was gone. Vivian's heirloom sapphire ring, the one she'd insisted I wear to her anniversary dinner, was missing. At first, I told myself not to panic. Maybe Adrian had moved it. Maybe the housekeeper placed it somewhere safe. Maybe, just maybe, Vivian had asked for it back without telling me. But deep down, I knew better. By noon, I got the call. Vivian's voice was sweet, too sweet, laced with something sticky and cold. Darling, I stopped by this morning to collect my ring, but Adrian said you still had it. I assume you've put it somewhere secure? I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay calm. It's not here, Vivian. I can't find it, silence. Then a sharp inhale, as though she'd been waiting for this moment all along. Oh dear. Her voice dropped, smooth as silk. I hope this isn't another misstep on your part. That afternoon, while I was still tearing the bedroom apart, the doorbell rang. 2 uniformed security officers from the country club, the same one where we'd held the anniversary dinner, stood at my door. Mrs. Hayes? The taller one asked. We'd like to ask you a few questions about a missing item reported by Mrs. Vivian Hayes. My stomach sank. She called you? He nodded, expression unreadable. She informed us the ring was last seen in your possession. I invited them in, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the glass of water I offered them. One of the officers asked permission to search my personal belongings. I agreed immediately, wanting this nightmare to end. They opened drawers, checked bags, looked under furniture. Nothing. I thought I'd finally be able to breathe again. Until the shorter officer returned from the closet holding my evening clutch, the one I'd used at the anniversary dinner. Ma'am, he said carefully, is this yours? I nodded. He held it open. Inside was a small folded napkin, and tucked neatly within it, an empty sapphire ring box. The officers left without taking further action, but the damage was already done. I didn't need to see the knowing look they exchanged to understand what they were thinking. Within hours, the whispers began. Lena sent a message in the family group chat. OMG, can't believe the ring's missing. Vivian followed up with a perfectly timed response. Let's not jump to conclusions, everyone. I'm sure it's just misplaced. But, well, it is a 7-figure heirloom. I felt sick. 7 figures? That was a lie. But no one questioned her. By evening, Adrian came home, jaw tight, shoulders tense. She told me about the ring, he said quietly. Please, just tell me where it is. I don't have it, Adrian. My voice broke. I never touched it after that night. He rubbed his forehead like I was the problem. I need you to understand how this looks. How this looks, I whispered, trembling. You think I stole from your mother? He didn't answer. That silence said more than words ever could. 2 days later, I learned the missing ring story had reached beyond the family. At the charity committee where I volunteered, one of the organizers avoided eye contact, then finally blurted, I'm sorry, but maybe it's best if you step back for now. Until this blows over, I drove home in a daze, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. When I walked inside, Adrian was on the phone, speaking softly, but I caught fragments. Yes, Mom. I know. I'll handle it. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection. My life, my reputation, my marriage, slowly slipping out of my control, one calculated move at a time. And Vivian? She hadn't even begun. The next morning, I got a message from Lena. I know where the ring is. Meet me. Alone, I stared at my phone, my pulse thundering in my ears. Was she trying to help me, or drag me deeper into Vivian's trap? I didn't know it then, but meeting Lena would change everything. Lena chose a small cafe on the far side of town, the kind of place where no one would recognize us. It was early evening, but the rain hadn't stopped all day, and the streets were slick, reflecting the soft glow of neon signs. I spotted her immediately in the corner booth. Perfectly styled hair, immaculate nails. Calm as ever, like this wasn't about the missing sapphire ring that had practically destroyed me overnight. Thanks for coming, she said, offering a faint smile as I sat down across from her. She didn't look nervous, not even a little. I took a deep breath. You said you know where the ring is. She stirred her coffee slowly, deliberately, before answering. I do. My stomach tightened. Then why haven't you told anyone? Why let this get so out of hand? Her gaze finally met mine, and for a split second, I saw something sharp flash behind her polished expression. Because knowing where the ring is, she said softly, and proving where it is, are two different things. Lena leaned forward, lowering her voice. Vivian planted it, she whispered. She wanted it to disappear. But you already knew that, didn't you? I stared at her, struggling to process the words. You're saying she framed me? Lena smirked, sipping her coffee like she was enjoying a private joke. I'm saying Vivian likes control. She's testing you, and Adrian. The missing ring? That's just the opening move. I didn't trust her, not entirely. But something in her tone made my chest tighten. If you know where it is, then tell me. I will, she said, tilting her head thoughtfully. But you need to do something for me first. There it was. The catch. I should have seen it coming. Lena slid a folded envelope across the table. Inside was a single-page document detailing a charity initiative Vivian was sponsoring at the upcoming Henderson Foundation Gala. But something didn't add up. The accounts listed were off, mismatched. It looked dirty. Vivian's funneling donations into a private trust, Lena explained casually. If someone were to bring this up at the gala, well, let's just say it would shift the spotlight. I froze, staring at the document. You want me to expose her? Lena's smile widened, slow and deliberate. Call it leveling the playing field. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap. But then I thought about the ring, the humiliation, the whispers, the charity board removing me, Vivian laughing behind closed doors. Maybe this was my chance to take control back. Why are you helping me? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Lena leaned back, crossing her arms, her smile never faltering. Because, she said smoothly, I'm tired of playing by her rules. And maybe I like watching her sweat, for once. I didn't know if I believed her, but I left the cafe with the envelope anyway, clutching it like a lifeline. That night, I told Adrian about the meeting. Lena, he scoffed, you can't trust her. She's been playing her own game for years. She says she knows where the ring is, I insisted. She says Vivian set me up. Adrian went quiet. Too quiet. Did you know about the gala donations? I pressed. He hesitated before answering. I can't talk about that. Can't talk about it, or won't. By midnight, I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling, Lena's words replaying in my head. Vivian planted the ring. Vivian was testing me. Vivian was tightening the noose one incident at a time. And now, Lena wanted me to publicly confront her at the gala, with evidence Vivian couldn't ignore. But there was one problem. If I misstepped, I'd be the one exposed instead. 3 days later, I walked into the Henderson Foundation gala with the envelope hidden inside my clutch. The chandeliers sparkled, cameras flashed, and whispers followed me like shadows. I had no idea that by the end of the night, the missing ring would be the least of my problems. The Henderson Foundation Gala was the kind of event where appearances mattered more than oxygen. Crystal chandeliers spilled gold across a sea of satin gowns and tailored tuxedos, and the air hummed with the clink of champagne glasses, polite laughter, and subtle competition. I stood at the edge of the grand ballroom, clutching my black satin clutch, the one hiding Lena's envelope. My heart pounded like a trapped bird inside my chest. Tonight, I was supposed to take back control. Tonight, I was supposed to expose Vivian. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Vivian arrived fashionably late, draped in a floor-length emerald gown, and confidence sharp enough to cut glass. People gravitated toward her instantly, like moths drawn to the brightest flame in the room. She spotted me across the ballroom and smiled sweetly, as though we were the closest of friends. "Darling," she purred when she reached me, kissing the air near my cheek. "You wore that dress?" "Brave choice," the photographer snapped, capturing her perfection and my awkward smile. I felt like the foil character in my own story. Then she leaned close, her lips grazing my ear so no one else could hear. "Remember," she whispered, her voice soft but razor-sharp, "this family survives because we manage optics. Tonight, let's see if you can." Before I could reply, she glided away, leaving the faint scent of her perfume and a sting behind. I found Lena near the silent auction table, sipping champagne and scrolling through her phone. "You have the envelope?" she murmured without looking up. I nodded. "Are you sure about this?" Lena smirked. "If you want Vivian to stop destroying you, you need leverage. That's it." I clutched the envelope tighter, feeling the weight of it like a stone. Dinner was served, and Vivian, of course, sat at the center of the long, ivory-draped table. I was 2 seats away, sandwiched between a bored hedge fund manager and his chatty wife, who seemed determined to discuss every scandal she'd ever read about in glossy magazines. As the servers cleared the first course, Vivian tapped her crystal glass. "Before dessert," she announced, her voice warm and commanding, "I'd like to thank everyone for their generous contributions to the foundation tonight." Polite applause filled the room. Then she smiled wider. "And I'd also like to give special thanks to my darling daughter-in-law." Her gaze found me, her tone syrupy sweet. "For volunteering to manage the donations tonight. Such a thoughtful gesture, isn't it?" I froze. I hadn't volunteered. I hadn't even known. The guests turned toward me, smiling, nodding, expecting a response. My pulse roared in my ears. After dessert, a murmur started rippling through the crowd. Guests huddled around their phones, whispering, brows furrowed. Lena slid into the seat beside me, her expression pale. "Something's wrong," she whispered. She showed me her screen. A screenshot of the foundation's account statement was circulating, large sums marked as transferred to an unverified personal account. My name appeared beside the authorization line. I couldn't breathe. "What is this?" I whispered. Lena stared at me, wide-eyed. I don't know. I didn't." Before I could finish, Vivian stood up again, tapping her glass once more, feigning concern this time. "My apologies, everyone," she said softly, "but there seems to have been a small, administrative hiccup with tonight's donations. Of course, it's being handled internally. Please enjoy the evening's small hiccup. Handled internally. Her tone was perfect, measured, polished, innocent. And every single guest now believed I'd mishandled hundreds of thousands of dollars. By the time I left the ballroom, whispers followed me like shadows. She was in charge of the donations. Vivian must be furious. Do you think she'll face charges? Adrian found me in the hallway, his face pale and drawn. Please tell me you didn't. I cut him off sharply. You think I did this? You think I'd risk everything to steal from your mother's foundation? He hesitated. Too long, too visibly. I just don't understand what's happening anymore. Neither did I. At home, I opened Lena's envelope again, desperately searching for answers. But it was empty. The document she'd shown me at the cafe was gone. My hands trembled as realization sank in. Lena, Vivian, the gala. This wasn't chaos. This was choreography. At midnight, I received a single text from an unknown number. One mistake leads to another. Sleep well, I stared at the screen, knowing there would be no sleep tonight. Because I'd just learned the truth. The gala wasn't a trap I'd stumbled into. It was a performance, and I was the unwitting star. 3 days after the gala, I woke to the vibration of my phone. A single text from an unknown number. Watch the news. My stomach knotted instantly. I grabbed the remote, switching on the morning broadcast, and there it was, splashed across the screen in bold letters. Charity gala under investigation. Donation mishandling alleged. The anchor smiled sympathetically as she recited the details, but I barely heard her words. My name appeared in the Chiron beneath the headline, right next to Vivian's glowing headshot from last year's foundation photoshoot. They'd made me the face of this. By noon, my inbox was flooded. Emails from the charity committee, messages from former colleagues, journalists wanting statements, and then the call from the foundation director herself. Mrs. Hayes, she said stiffly, there's been troubling information brought to our attention. I swallowed hard. I didn't take a single dollar. That's not what the footage shows. Footage? At 3 p.m., I sat in a cold conference room at the Henderson Foundation headquarters, staring at a large screen. The room smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. Vivian was there, seated gracefully beside the director, her emerald earrings catching the light as if mocking me. The security chief pressed play. Grainy black and white footage filled the screen. It showed me walking through the ballroom, clutching my satin clutch. A man in a suit brushed past, slipping something into my bag. An envelope. The timestamp matched the exact moment the donation transfers were authorized. The video froze on my blurred figure, one hand on my clutch, one on my phone. Do you deny that's you? The director asked. I nodded, my voice trembling. That is me. But I didn't put anything in my bag. Someone else did. Vivian sighed delicately, placing a hand over her chest. Oh, darling, she murmured. It's okay to be honest. Mistakes happen. I whipped my head toward her. Are you implying I stole from the foundation? Her lips curved into that same soft smile. I would never accuse you, unless, of course, the evidence forces us to consider the possibility. I left the meeting shaking. My legs felt hollow, like the floor might collapse beneath me at any second. When I reached my car, Adrian was waiting outside, leaning against the hood, arms crossed. I told you, he said quietly, you shouldn't have gotten involved with Lena. My chest tightened. This wasn't Lena. He looked at me, tired, resigned. Then who was it? I opened my mouth to answer, but stopped when I noticed something in his expression. Hesitation, fear, guilt. Adrian, I whispered, stepping closer. What do you know? He looked away. That night, I called Lena, demanding answers. You set me up, I shouted the moment she picked up. Her voice was calm, too calm. Relax. If I wanted to destroy you, you'd already be done. That video? That wasn't me. Then who? She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Listen carefully. Mom has people watching everything. The gala was a test. She wanted to see how far you'd go to protect yourself. And guess what? I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached. What? You failed. I hung up on her, pacing the living room in silence until the doorbell rang. 2 uniformed officers stood outside. Mrs. Hayes, one said politely, we'd like to ask you a few questions regarding the gala investigation. We'll also need to collect your personal devices for review behind them. At the end of the driveway, Vivian's black sedan sat parked beneath the streetlight. I couldn't see her face, but I didn't have to. I already knew she was smiling. By midnight, I sat in bed clutching my pillow, staring into the darkness. Everywhere I turned, Vivian was 2 steps ahead. Every mistake traced back to her. Every rumor, every headline, every whisper at the charity committee. It all came from her. I thought the anniversary toast had been humiliation. But this was dismantling. And as I lay there in silence, my phone buzzed again. A blocked number. Sleep tight, sweetheart. Tomorrow will be worse. The next morning, I woke to find a new gift on our doorstep. A copy of our prenup addendum, highlighted in neon pink, with a single handwritten note across the top. You'll want to read Clause 14 carefully. I flipped to it with trembling fingers. It granted Vivian emergency financial authority if I was deemed mentally unfit to handle household affairs. And now, the entire foundation board believed I'd stolen money. Suddenly, I understood. The gala wasn't just about ruining my name. It was about building a legal case against me. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a moment. Clause 14 haunted me. The mental unfitness clause. It was more than legal language. It was a knife. A way to cut me out of everything without touching me directly. By sunrise, I knew one thing for certain. Vivian wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was trying to erase me. I spent the morning at the bank, determined to get answers. I wanted to see our accounts, our assets, our liabilities, everything. I expected polite resistance, maybe a few hoops to jump through, but I didn't expect the look the banker gave me when I asked to see Adrian's division statements. Mrs. Hayes, she said softly, lowering her voice, perhaps you should discuss this with your husband first. I am discussing it, I said firmly. With you. She hesitated, glanced around, then leaned forward. There are multiple private loans under his name, significant ones. They're backed by your mother-in-law's collateral. The room tilted slightly. How significant? She slid a folder across the counter and whispered, You should sit down. 3 personal loans, 2 lines of credit, all quietly guaranteed by Vivian's trust. The numbers were staggering. 7 figures, maybe more. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles pale. So she owns him, I whispered. The banker frowned. Technically, she owns the risk. Number. She owned us. When I got home, Adrian was in his study, hunched over his laptop, scrolling through spreadsheets. He looked exhausted, the shadows under his eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. Why didn't you tell me? I asked quietly from the doorway. He didn't look up. Tell you what? I stepped inside, tossing the bank folder onto his desk. The papers fanned out like spilled secrets. This! He froze, his hand hovering over the trackpad. How long? I demanded. How long have you been using her money to keep your division afloat? He dragged his hand down his face, finally meeting my eyes. 5 years. 5 years. And you didn't think I deserved to know? I didn't want you to worry, he said softly. And Mom said... I cut him off sharply. Stop. Stop telling me what Mom said. Do you even hear yourself anymore? His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I walked to the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass, trying to steady my breathing. Do you understand what this means? I whispered. She owns the loans, Adrian. She owns you. And if she takes you down, I go with you. She wouldn't do that. he said quickly. Too quickly. I turned, staring at him. Haven't you been paying attention? Every single thing she's done these past few weeks has been leading to this moment. She's stacking evidence against me, pushing me out of this family, and now I know why. She's protecting the business, he argued, his voice rising. Her name. The legacy. Our future. Our future? I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Adrian, this isn't about protecting us. It's about controlling us. And it's working. That night, while Adrian showered, I went through his desk drawers looking for anything that might give me leverage. I found an unmarked envelope tucked beneath a stack of financial reports. Inside were printed emails between Adrian and Vivian. One line, highlighted in red, froze my blood. Once we establish her financial instability, Clause 14 will give us everything we need. Her words. Her plan. Vivian wasn't just setting me up to look incompetent. She was building a case to strip me of all financial decision-making power, legally. I sank onto the floor, clutching the envelope, the realization hitting me all at once. This wasn't just about humiliation. This wasn't even about the missing ring or the gala scandal. This was about ownership. Vivian wanted my marriage, my home, my security. And now, I understood why Adrian never defended me. He couldn't. He was already hers. Later that night, after Adrian had fallen asleep, I stood by the bedroom window, staring into the darkness outside. A black sedan sat parked across the street. Engine idling, lights off. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another blocked number. Tick, tock. 2 weeks left. 2 weeks until what? I didn't know yet. But I knew one thing. If I didn't fight back now, I'd lose everything. The next morning, I called Lena. I need proof, I said, my voice trembling but steady. Every document, every transfer, every piece of this setup. If you want me to trust you, give me something I can use. She hesitated before replying. Meet me tomorrow night, and come alone. Her voice sounded calm, but something in the silence that followed told me I was walking straight into another trap. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I thought it was more gossip about the gala investigation, but when I finally opened my messages, my stomach dropped. Screenshots, dozens of them. They were from my private therapy notes. Every painful admission, every fear, every moment of vulnerability I'd ever confessed behind closed doors, splashed across the family group chat like cheap entertainment. Phrases ripped out of context. Anger, resentment, escape, feel trapped. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it might split my ribs open. I called my therapist immediately, voice shaking. Dr. Harris, how did this happen? She sounded just as horrified. I don't know. My records are encrypted. But someone must have hacked my system. Someone. I already knew who. By noon, Vivian called me. Her tone was soft, feigned concern dripping from every syllable. Darling, she said, I just wanted to check in after everything we've seen this morning. I clenched my jaw. You leaked them. Oh, sweetheart, of course not, she said smoothly. But I am worried about you. These notes, they make it sound like you're unstable, overwhelmed, possibly unfit. I froze, the word vibrating like an alarm bell inside my head. Clause 14. This wasn't just humiliation anymore. This was strategy. Vivian paused, letting the silence linger, then added delicately, Don't worry, though. We'll protect you. You just need to step back for a while. Let us handle the finances, the business, the foundation, everything. That afternoon, I confronted Adrian, shoving the phone in his face. You see this? Do you see what she's doing? He stared at the screen, his expression unreadable. You actually said these things? I blinked, stunned. That's what you got from this? Adrian, those notes were private. She's weaponizing them against me. He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my gaze. I don't know how to defend you anymore. I took a step back, my voice breaking. You don't need to defend me. You just need to believe me. But his silence said everything. By evening, the whispers started again, this time beyond the family. I was removed from the charity committee group chat without explanation. Two close friends, politely, canceled our coffee plans. A neighbor stopped me at the mailbox, asking carefully, I heard you've been under a lot of stress. Is everything okay at home? The world was shrinking around me, walls closing in, faster than I could breathe. At midnight, Lena finally called. "You're spiraling," she said, her voice hushed but sharp. "Spiraling?" I snapped. "Your mother just painted me as unstable. She leaked my therapy notes, Lena." "Yeah," she said flatly. "And you know why." I gripped the phone tighter. Clause 14. Exactly. Her tone softened slightly. She's building a legal case, brick by brick. First, the missing ring, then the gala, now the therapy notes. She's creating a narrative, one where you're unpredictable, emotional, unfit. And once the board buys it, you'll lose control of everything. I sank into the couch, covering my face with trembling hands. She's going to take everything, isn't she? Lena hesitated before answering. She already has, sweetheart. You just don't see it yet. That night, I went digging for answers, searching through Adrian's emails, financial statements, anything that could explain how deep Vivian's influence went. That's when I found it. A confidential document labeled Guardianship Inquiry, Preliminary Review, filed 6 months ago, by Vivian's attorneys. They were preparing to declare me legally unfit. I sat in the dark living room, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. My reflection stared back at me from the black screen of my phone. Pale, tired, unrecognizable. Somewhere in the shadows, Vivian had moved from attacking my reputation to dismantling my existence. And for the first time, a terrifying thought crept in. What if she actually won? The next morning, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single printed photo, me leaving my therapist's office 2 weeks ago, taken from across the street. On the back, written in perfect cursive, "We see everything." I gripped the photo until my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was surveillance. The first time it happened, I didn't even realize. I'd been curled up on the couch, exhausted from days of whispers, leaks, and sleepless nights. My phone lay on the coffee table, silent, untouched. No calls, no messages. Just an eerie, unfamiliar quiet. By late afternoon, I reached for it to check the time, only to see 6 missed calls from the same number. My mother's number. My chest tightened. I called back immediately, hands shaking, but it went straight to voicemail. That's when Adrian came home, loosening his tie, scrolling through his own phone like nothing was wrong. "Did Mom call you?" I asked urgently. He glanced up, confused. "What? Number, why?" "She called me 6 times. My voice trembled. "I think something's wrong." He frowned, checked his phone again, then froze. "There's nothing here. No missed calls." 2 hours later, my sister finally answered when I called her from the landline. Her voice cracked the moment she picked up. "Where were you?" she cried. "Mom collapsed this morning. They tried calling you all day." My throat closed. "What? I didn't get any messages." "They said your phone was off," she choked out. "The hospital called too." I grabbed my keys and ran. By the time I arrived, visiting hours were over. The nurse gave me a look, pity mixed with judgment. "Immediate family only," she said softly. "I am immediate family," I gasped. "I'm her daughter." She hesitated, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They tried reaching you all day, sweetheart. Whoever answered said you weren't available." "Answered?" I whispered. I stopped. My stomach sank. My hands went cold. I didn't need to guess who it was. Vivian. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were bone white. Adrian sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through messages, oblivious. "Vivian stopped the calls," I said finally, my voice low, flat. He looked up, startled. "What are you talking about?" She knew Mom was in the hospital. She intercepted the calls. She wanted me to miss it. Adrian shook his head, rubbing his temples. That doesn't make sense. Why would she? Because, I cut him off, my voice breaking, she wants everyone to believe I'm unstable, neglectful, unfit. She's building her case. When we got home, a small package sat on the doorstep, wrapped in white paper. Inside was a single hospital visitor's badge with my name printed neatly on it. Attached was a note in Vivian's handwriting. Family comes first. But you wouldn't know that, would you? I felt my knees give out beneath me. That night, I confronted Adrian in the kitchen, slamming the note onto the counter. Do you still think this is coincidence? I demanded. He glanced at the badge, frowning. This doesn't prove anything. I laughed bitterly, my voice sharp and hollow. It proves everything, Adrian. She knew. She wanted me to miss it. She wanted me to look like a daughter who doesn't care. He leaned back against the counter, silent, his expression unreadable. Tell me something, I said softly, stepping closer. If I disappeared tomorrow, would you even fight for me? He looked at me then, really looked, and the silence between us was louder than any answer he could have given. Hours later, I sat alone on the edge of the bed, staring at my mother's photo on my phone. My missed chance. My failure, not mine, but mine to bear anyway. And that's when I saw it. A tiny notification buried in my voicemail settings. Forwarding activated. My calls hadn't been missed. They'd been rerouted. I didn't sleep at all. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement. Around midnight, the black sedan appeared again, idling beneath the same tree as before, engine rumbling faintly. This time, I didn't look away. I stepped closer to the glass, phone in hand, heart pounding in my ears. The sedan didn't move. Whoever sat inside wanted me to know they were there. The next morning, I received another envelope on the doorstep. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Me, standing outside the hospital last night, staring up at the lit windows. On the back, written in the same perfect cursive, "We warned you!" Tick, tock! I clenched the photo so hard it crumpled in my fist. Vivian wasn't just dismantling my reputation anymore. She was dismantling me. And if I didn't do something soon, I wasn't just going to lose my marriage or my finances. I was going to lose my name. 3 days after the hospital incident, Vivian invited us to brunch. I almost didn't go. Every instinct screamed at me to stay home, but Adrian insisted. "She wants to make peace," he said. "She's trying. Can't you at least meet her halfway?" "Halfway?" I whispered, staring at him. "She's destroying me, Adrian." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Please, just come." For me, I went, and I shouldn't have. Vivian greeted us at her sprawling estate like nothing had ever happened. The wide glass doors, the smell of lilies, the sunlight spilling across polished marble floors. It was all perfect, curated, untouchable. "Darling," she said smoothly, kissing my cheek as though she hadn't rerouted my mother's hospital calls 3 nights ago. "Come in. I've prepared something special." On the dining table sat a crystal vase of roses, a pot of fresh tea, and a thick leather-bound folder embossed with gold letters. "Family Legacy." I froze. "What's this?" Vivian smiled, her expression so warm it almost felt real. "A gift," she said softly. "For you." For the future, we sat at the table while she poured tea into delicate porcelain cups, humming softly under her breath, pretending this was a normal Sunday morning. "I've been thinking," she began, placing her hand gently over mine, "about the next generation." "The next generation?" I repeated cautiously. "Grandchildren," she said brightly. "Your future children. Our family's legacy." She opened the leather folder and slid it toward me. Inside was a series of contracts, neatly tabbed and highlighted in pastel colors, like someone had wrapped poison in silk. "This," she explained, "is a trust fund we've set up for when the babies come. Multi-million-dollar assets allocated, educational guarantees, a fully renovated nursery. You won't have to lift a finger." I flipped through the first pages, my pulse quickening. It looked generous, even loving. But then, near the bottom, I saw it. Highlighted in pale yellow. Emergency Guardianship Authority. I froze. It granted Vivian legal rights over all household decisions involving dependents if one parent was deemed unfit. Unfit. Clause 14. It was all connected. I set the folder down slowly, my voice low and steady. "This isn't a gift," I said. "This is control." Vivian feigned surprise, pressing her hand to her chest. "Control?" "Darling, no. This is protection." For the children, Adrian skimmed the document beside me, his brow furrowed. "Mom, this is a little extreme, don't you think?" She tilted her head, smiling softly. "Is it extreme to want security for your family, Adrian? To prepare for unexpected circumstances?" Unexpected circumstances, her favorite phrase. I stared at her, fighting to keep my voice steady. "You've been planning this for months." She didn't flinch. "I plan everything, dear. That's why this family has survived." After brunch, I stepped out onto the balcony for air. Lena followed, leaning casually against the railing. "She's tightening the noose," she said quietly, sipping her mimosa. I glanced at her sharply. "And you're just standing there watching it happen?" Lena shrugged. "I warned you. She's not building trust funds for future grandkids. She's building power structures, and you're giving her exactly what she wants every time you react." I turned toward her. "Then help me. Tell me what you know." Lena studied me for a moment, her expression unreadable, then slipped something small into my hand. A USB drive. "This," she whispered, "has emails between Mom and her attorney, guardianship filings, contingency plans, and something else you'll want to see." Before I could ask what she meant, she was gone, leaving me on the balcony with my heart pounding. That night, I plugged the USB into my laptop. My hands trembled as I opened the folders, scanned contracts, board meeting transcripts, confidential memos. And then I found the email chain. Subject line, Phase 2 Implementation. Once the therapy notes circulate, we proceed with guardianship readiness. Ensure Adrian is aligned. No direct confrontation until Clause 14 can be triggered legally. I felt the blood drain from my face. Adrian. She had him aligned. At midnight, I confronted him in the bedroom, shoving the printed emails toward him. "You knew?" My voice cracked. "You've known this whole time." He stared at the papers, silent. "Say something, Adrian," I shouted, tears burning behind my eyes. Finally, he whispered, "She said it was for our protection." "Our protection?" I laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and hollow. "She's preparing to take everything from me, and you're letting her." He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, gripping the USB drive like a lifeline. Vivian wasn't hiding anymore. This wasn't manipulation behind the scenes. This was war. And if I didn't move first, she'd take my home, my marriage, and, if we ever had them, my children. The next morning, another envelope appeared on the doorstep. No return address. Inside was a single photograph of an empty nursery, perfectly staged with soft pastel walls, a crib, and a rocking chair. Written in cursive on the back, "Some futures belong to me." The invitation came in a white envelope, embossed with gold lettering, elegant and deliberate. "Family Reconciliation Meeting." At first, I almost laughed. Reconciliation? After the missing ring, the gala, the therapy notes, and the nursery contract? But Adrian begged me to come. "She just wants to clear the air," he said softly, "for the sake of the family." I stared at him for a long moment, trying to find any trace of the man I'd married, the one who once swore he'd protect me from everything. All I saw was hesitation and fear. Against my better judgment, I agreed. And that's how I walked straight into Vivian's trap. The meeting took place at the Hayes corporate headquarters, 30 floors up, in a boardroom made of glass and polished walnut. When I arrived, I immediately knew something was wrong. Vivian sat at the head of the table, dressed in slate gray silk, perfectly composed. To her right were two family trustees, their expressions tight and unreadable. To her left sat the foundation's director and a high-profile attorney I recognized from the gala scandal coverage. This wasn't reconciliation. This was prosecution. "Darling," Vivian said smoothly, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "Thank you for coming." "Please sit." I stayed standing. "What is this?" "A discussion," she said calmly. "An opportunity for transparency." Adrian slipped in behind me, placing a gentle hand on my arm as though to reassure me. But his touch felt heavy, weighted with something unspoken. Vivian opened a leather portfolio and laid out several documents, each carefully clipped and highlighted. "These," she said softly, sliding them across the table, "are summaries of your recent incidents." I stared at the first page. Exhibit A, the missing sapphire ring. Exhibit B, the gala donations scandal. Exhibit C, my therapy notes. Exhibit D, missed hospital calls. Every page was meticulously documented, every event framed to paint me as impulsive, careless, unstable. "You created this," I whispered, my voice trembling. Vivian folded her hands elegantly. "I compiled it," she corrected, "for clarity." Then the attorney spoke, his tone measured and professional. "Mrs. Hayes, the trustees have growing concerns about your ability to manage family-related responsibilities, financial, reputational, and legal. These issues, combined with documented emotional stressors, could pose significant risks moving forward." I glanced around the room, searching for a friendly face. There were none. "This is absurd," I said, trying to steady my voice. "Vivian has orchestrated every one of these so-called incidents." "Do you have evidence of that?" the attorney asked smoothly. My throat went dry. The USB Lena's emails, the proof I had, was still hidden at home. Vivian smiled faintly, sensing my hesitation. "I understand this is difficult," she said gently, her voice honey over poison. "But we can help you. We can protect you." Then she slid another document across the table. A private separation agreement. I froze. "What is this?" "A solution," Vivian said softly. "We'll handle the foundation, the trust, the accounts. You'll step away from administrative responsibilities, for your own well-being, of course." I flipped through the pages, bile rising in my throat. The agreement required me to relinquish any decision-making authority over shared finances, withdraw from all family business and foundation roles, sign a binding NDA preventing me from discussing family matters publicly. In exchange, they'd correct the record about the gala, the missing ring, and the therapy leak, effectively rewriting history to erase the humiliation. It was a clean extraction. I'd keep my title as Adrian's wife, but on paper, I'd cease to exist. I looked at Adrian. "You knew about this?" He didn't deny it. He didn't even look at me. "Say something," I whispered. Finally he spoke, his voice low and broken. "This is the only way to keep the peace." "The peace?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean her control?" Vivian leaned forward, her tone soft, maternal, deadly. "Darling, sometimes surrender is peace." I stood up, pushing the papers back across the table. "No," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I'm not signing away my life." The attorney exchanged a glance with the trustees. One of them sighed softly, almost disappointed. Vivian's smile faltered for the first time. "I hoped you'd make the rational choice," she said quietly. "But if you won't, we'll have to move forward another way." "Is that a threat?" I asked. She tilted her head, her voice silk and steel. "It's a promise." That night, I sat in the dark living room, staring at the USB Lena had given me. Inside it was my proof, my leverage, the only weapon I had left. But I knew using it meant declaring open war. I thought about the photo of the nursery, the hospital calls, the gala humiliation, the endless surveillance. Vivian had been moving her pieces for months. And now, finally, I understood. This wasn't just about control. It was about erasure. If I didn't fight back, I wouldn't just lose my marriage or my reputation. I'd lose me. I didn't sleep after the boardroom ambush. The unsigned separation agreement sat on the coffee table like a live grenade, its crisp edges mocking me every time I walked past. I could still hear Vivian's voice echoing in my head. Darling, sometimes surrender is peace. But signing those papers wasn't surrender. It was erasure. The next morning, Vivian called. "Have you had time to think, dear?" Her tone was light, casual, like we were discussing dinner plans and not the complete dismantling of my identity. "I'm not signing it," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Silence. Then, softly, almost lovingly, "You'll regret this." She hung up before I could reply. That day, Adrian barely spoke to me. He avoided eye contact, retreating into his study and closing the door. I could hear the low murmur of his phone calls through the walls, muffled, hurried, secretive. By evening, Lena showed up unannounced. She didn't ring the doorbell. She just walked in like she owned the place, tossing her bag on the sofa. "You shouldn't have refused the deal," she said, collapsing into an armchair. I crossed my arms. "So you're on her side now?" "I'm on my side," Lena said coolly. "And right now, your refusal puts everyone at risk." "Mom doesn't lose. You should know that by now. Then why give me the USB?" I shot back. She smirked faintly. "Because watching her squirm is fun. But helping you win? That's impossible." That night, I finally opened the files on the USB. I needed ammunition, something concrete, anything to break her chokehold over my life. Inside were hundreds of emails between Vivian and her lawyers, each more calculated than the last. She'd choreographed everything: the missing ring, the gala scandal, the therapy notes leak, even the hospital call rerouting. Every incident had been engineered to paint me as unstable, untrustworthy, incapable. Then I found it. The smoking gun. An email chain titled "Final Contingency Plan." If she refuses the separation agreement, initiate Phase 3. Push her into a public failure. Document everything. Leverage Adrian where possible. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Phase 3. I didn't know what it was, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to wait for her to destroy me. The next morning, I called Vivian directly. "You want war?" I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "Fine. Let's have war." She chuckled softly, almost pitying. "Oh, sweetheart, you still think you're playing?" She hung up. I didn't have to wait long to find out what Phase 3 was. 2 days later, a breaking news alert flashed across my phone. Hayes Foundation announces sudden financial audit following internal mismanagement. My name was everywhere. Again. By noon, journalists were outside the house, cameras flashing, shouting questions I couldn't answer. Headlines screamed about missing funds, misfiled accounts, and ongoing investigations. I'd been locked out of the foundation system entirely. No emails, no records, no way to defend myself. Vivian had stripped me of access and flooded the press with her version of the story. And Adrian? He sat on the sofa, staring blankly at the TV. "You have to fight this," I said, my voice sharp with panic. He turned slowly, his face pale and hollow. "I can't," he whispered. "If I go against her, she'll cut funding to my division. Hundreds of jobs would be at risk. The board would—" He stopped, exhaling shakily. "I can't." The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. I was completely alone. That night, I received another envelope on the doorstep. Inside was a printed photo of me leaving the Henderson Foundation office weeks ago. Vivian's attorneys flanking me on either side. Written across the bottom in her elegant cursive. "Almost over." I sank onto the floor, clutching the photo with shaking hands. Vivian wasn't bluffing. She was closing in. But I still had the USB. I still had proof. I called Lena. "I'm going public," I said flatly. She laughed softly. "Go ahead. Just know Mom's 3 steps ahead. Whatever you release, she'll twist it. She always does." I hesitated. Then what do I do? Lena paused, her voice quieter this time. You run. But I wasn't ready to run. Not yet. Because if Vivian wanted a public failure, I'd give her one. Just, not mine. I woke up the next morning to silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, suffocating kind that tells you something is wrong before you even open your eyes. No buzzing phone, no ringing doorbell, no emails flooding in to accuse me of something I didn't do. It was the calm before the storm. Adrian was already downstairs, sitting at the kitchen counter with a mug of untouched coffee. He didn't look at me when I entered. His shoulders slumped, his hair unkempt, his laptop closed. I poured myself tea and waited for him to speak. Finally, he said softly, "She wants to see you." I didn't have to ask who. "I have nothing left to say to Vivian," I replied flatly. He hesitated, then slid a thin manila envelope across the counter toward me. She says this is the last offer." I opened it slowly. Inside were 2 documents. A revised separation agreement with stricter clauses. A court summons drafted, unsigned, threatening to pursue guardianship if I refused again. Clause 14, the emergency mental unfitness clause, highlighted in neon yellow this time, like a blade pressing against my throat. I set the papers down and looked at Adrian. "Are you going to fight for me?" He looked up finally, his eyes tired, hollow. "You're asking me to choose between you and my mother." "No," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'm asking you to choose between me and her control over us." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. That evening, I stood by the front door with my suitcase packed. 1 bag. That's all I allowed myself. 1 bag, my laptop, and the USB drive Lena had given me. Adrian sat on the sofa, his hands clasped tightly, staring at the floor. He didn't try to stop me. "You could come with me," I said softly, one last time. He shook his head slowly. "You don't understand. I owe her everything." The words shattered something inside me I didn't even know was still whole. I nodded once, picked up my suitcase, and walked to the door. But when I opened it, I froze. A package sat on the doormat, wrapped in matte black paper, tied with a white silk ribbon. My name written neatly in Vivian's perfect cursive. I knelt down, hands trembling as I unwrapped it. Inside was a framed photo of Adrian and Vivian at the Hayes corporate gala last year. Laughing, champagne flutes raised, completely in sync. Taped to the bottom corner was a handwritten note. "Back where he belongs." I stared at the photo until the edges blurred through my tears. That night, I checked into a small apartment on the other side of town. Bare walls, 1 window, silence that echoed. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like exile. I thought leaving would end the nightmare, but I underestimated Vivian. The next morning, my phone buzzed with notifications. Headlines blared across every news site. Hayes Foundation names Vivian Hayes interim controller, protects legacy amid scandal. They'd stripped me from everything. My photos vanished from the foundation website. My name removed from donation records, press releases, even archived newsletters. It was like I'd never existed. Later that day, I met Lena at a quiet cafe, exhaustion weighing down every breath. She slid into the seat across from me, sunglasses hiding her eyes. "You did it," she said softly. "You left." "I didn't leave," I whispered, clutching my tea. "She pushed me out." Lena tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "She's rewriting the story now," she said flatly. "By next month, no one will even remember you were part of this family." I swallowed hard, gripping the USB drive in my pocket. "Then maybe it's time I tell my own story." Lena gave a dry laugh. "Go ahead. Just know she has a counter for every move you make." That night, I sat in the apartment, staring at my laptop. I opened the files on the USB, scrolling through Vivian's emails, legal memos, and contracts. There was enough there to expose her, enough to burn everything she'd built. But then I found something else. a hidden folder inside the USB labeled Phase 4. Inside were scanned documents, property deeds, company shares, and Adrian's personal financial statements, all transferred quietly into Vivian's control. She didn't just own his division, she owned him. And suddenly, the photograph made sense. Back where he belongs. She hadn't taken Adrian from me. He'd been hers all along. I closed the laptop slowly, the room spinning around me. Vivian had won. But as I stared at the city lights through the narrow apartment window, a strange calm settled over me. Because somewhere deep down, beneath the fear and humiliation, I knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not yet. I used to think silence meant peace. Now I know better. Silence is heavy. It carries everything unsaid, everything broken, everything stolen. In this small apartment, with its bare walls and single window overlooking the city, silence feels less like freedom and more like a ghost that follows me wherever I go. But maybe ghosts aren't always something to fear. It's been 6 weeks since I walked out of that house. 6 weeks since I left behind the marriage I built, the family I fought for, and the name they've already erased from their story. The headlines moved on. The gala scandal is old news now. The foundation recovered, restructured, and Vivian took control. Officially, proudly, completely. Adrian stands at her side in every photo, smiling, unburdened, back where she always wanted him. I stopped looking at those pictures after the first week. At some point, staring at what you lost becomes its own form of self-destruction. I've learned to live smaller here. I buy groceries from the little market on the corner. I walk to the park when the noise in my head gets too loud. I drink my morning coffee in chipped mugs I picked up from a thrift shop. No crystal chandeliers, no charity galas, no curated perfection. And for the first time in years, every single thing around me is mine. It's strange how something as simple as choosing your own dishes can feel like rebellion. I still dream about the house sometimes, the sound of the garden fountain, the way the sun spilled through the kitchen windows in the mornings, the soft creak of the stairs. But when I wake up, I remind myself, that house was never really mine. Neither was Adrian. He belonged to her world long before I stepped into it. I just didn't want to see it. Yesterday, I finally opened the USB drive again. I read every email, every contract, every detail of Vivian's perfectly orchestrated trap. And instead of anger, I felt something else. Clarity. Vivian didn't beat me because she was stronger. She beat me because I was playing the wrong game. I spent years defending myself against her lies when I should have been telling my own truth. I haven't decided what to do with the USB yet. Part of me wants to burn it, to leave this entire nightmare behind me. But another part, the quieter, steadier part, knows I might need it someday. Because people like Vivian, they don't stop. They just wait for the next opportunity to remind you of the power they hold. And next time, I won't be unprepared. Last night, I walked down to the park at sunset, the city skyline glowing amber against the horizon. Families were out, kids running in circles, couples sharing quiet conversations on benches, an old man feeding birds near the fountain. I sat on the grass, closed my eyes, and let the sound of laughter and wind drown out the ghosts in my head. For the first time in months, I breathed without feeling like someone was standing on my chest. I lost my marriage. I lost the house. I lost the version of myself I used to know. But somewhere in all that loss, I found something I didn't expect. The chance to start over. And maybe that's not the ending Vivian wanted for me. But it's the one I'm choosing. So if you've stayed with me until the end, maybe your heart has felt something too. If you've ever been pushed to the edge, made to question your worth, or fought battles no one else could see, you're not alone. Leave a comment, hit like, subscribe, if you'd like to keep sharing these stories with me. Because I have more to tell. And this isn't the end. It's the beginning. Thank you for listening to the whole story. I hope you will support my future works.